Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Big East Rewind, where we are bridging the gap between the past Big East Conference and current day. And with that in mind, my partner, as always, is the great Dr. Sonny Sparrow, and I am Chuck Everson, your 7-foot host from Villanova University. And we will be talking today. We have a very, very special guest today. But before we do that, we have a little of business to attend to. Anybody that wants to check us out on social media, we're on all things social media by putting Big East Rewind in the search bar. And check out our website at www.bigeastrewind.com, where you can catch up with all of us and what's going on with the Big East Conference. How are you, Sonny? What's going on?
I'm great. I'm great, Chuck. I got a message from a D Filippo with Ernie on the message, and I
Right.
was like, "Are you?" At first, I thought it was a joke or a scam. I said, "Somebody that
Yeah.
knows Ernie. I mean, you just calling me out of the blue. I mean, Ernie's legendary. You know, our
Yeah, I
guest that
mean,
we're
he was
talking
one
to,
of the first guys that we really saw play. We're a little
right?
younger than Ernie, but I mean, he was like one of the first big stars from that era. I mean, I remember him with the Buffalo Braves. That was my squad.
Right?
I mean,
Yeah.
we were talking about this before the show went on. That team with Bob McAdoo, Jack Marin, Gar Hurd, Randy Smith, who's a Long
Randy
Island
Smith
guy,
from
Jim
Buffalo.
McMillan. I mean, that was my team, man, when I was a kid. Especially with Mac and
And
Ernie.
they had the baby blue uniforms,
Oh
and
yeah,
it
oh
was
yeah,
yeah. Love the Braves. Yeah.
yeah. And apparently, a lot of guys our age did, because one of my teammates stole my Bob McAdoo jersey that was signed by Mac. So I have to go back after him. But and anyway, so let's get this ball rolling, Sonny. Let's introduce our guest. We've already let the cat out of the bag. He was a first team All-American at Providence, played the 1973 Final Four. He's a college basketball Hall of Famer, 1974 NBA Rookie of the Year, and the author of Star with a Broken Heart, which we're really going to get into today with him. The Friar legend from North Providence, Rhode Island, Sonny, the great Ernie DiGregorio. How are you, Ernie?
I'm doing great. I'm enjoying life. I'm working on my book, trying to make it a movie, talking to a lot of movie producers, and it's really taken off. I wrote a special story about my coach, Dave Gavit, who you guys know started the Big East, and my teammate and great friend, Marvin Bonds.
Yeah,
And it's a human story book, and it's been a lot of fun to work with Providence College as my partner and work every day to promote the book and the movie.
We're
that's
gonna
all.
we're gonna want you to share some of those stories because those were special times. But I want to go back to the times that you were playing in college and what the environment was like. Can you describe for some of the people who maybe didn't appreciate the early 70s, the racial tensions, the war, and all the kind of things that surrounded that maybe we don't have any idea right today, but what were some of the environmental things going on back then?
Well, like you hit on it, race relations was a big topic. Marvin Bonds, who was a 6'9" rebound and shot blocking phenom, came from South Providence, which was predominantly black, and Ernie D, the 6 foot white ball handling guy, came from North Providence, was totally white. So as I say in my book, uh, for 40 minutes when we came together, we brought the whole community together as once, and that racial divide was completely out of whack, and people just enjoyed basketball and people being people. Marvin used to tell me all the time that his brothers used to tell him, "What are you hanging around with that white Oreo for?" And my friends used to say, "What are you hanging around with that black guy for?" But we were very close. And in the book, it describes how he would come over my house for macaroni and meatballs on Sunday, and I would go over his house. I was very close to his mother, and we didn't see color. We just had one objective, which was to get on national TV because when we played in the 70s, there was no ESPN. So
Right.
there weren't a zillion games on TV. And the only way you got on TV was you had to be a great team. So we knew we had that goal to win so we could get that national exposure because both of us wanted to be NBA first round picks.
I gotta ask you, did your mom call it gravy or did she call it sauce?
Gravy.
Thank
There
you.
you go, Sonny. That's
that
the
answers
correct
one of the
name.
great questions. My grandmother called it Sunday gravy, and my mother, she called it gravy, and then we live in upstate New York. Eventually, we started to call it sauce, but gravy is the traditional word. I love to
Yeah.
hear that.
Well, people think it's sauce, but it's really gravy.
That's great. I know Coach Mass would have loved to hear you say that, Ernie. That's for sure. You
I
know.
bet you he loved his gravy and
Oh, he
meatballs
sure did.
and
Absolutely.
sausage.
And there's a lot of spots up in Providence I know of, that are really good at the Italian food. Marchetti's comes
Yeah,
to,
yeah,
yeah. So
that's a great restaurant. There are a
yeah,
lot of them. You're right.
yeah. There's a lot for sure. So talk to us about now. How did you're growing up in North Prov? Okay, so how did you get to play? And what was the path you took to get to play at Providence? Is that something you wanted to do? You wanted to stay home? Is that how did Coach Gavit find you? I heard a story about you playing in the park. With the split lip. Talk about that and how you met Coach
Yeah.
Gavit.
Well, first of all, when I was younger, like 10, 11, 12 years old, like I said, the only show in town was one of the local TV stations that had Providence College basketball on. They would probably televise six, seven games. And Providence was really great under Joe Mulaney. The NCAA wasn't that big then. The NIT was the biggest show in town. And they had players like Lenny Wilkins, Johnny Egan,
Yeah.
Jimmy Walker. They had some great players. Mike Reardon, who played for the Knicks, who's a dear friend of mine. And they put such an impression on me that I wanted to be just like them. I wanted to play home, play in front of my family, and play at Providence College. So that was my goal when I was 12 years old, to get a scholarship to Providence College. And so what I did was I had a really great senior year in high school. I averaged like 37 points a game, but I played at Class B. So a lot of people thought, if I only played in B, I wasn't good enough to play in A. So I had to go to prep school because I only had 1 year of Spanish and algebra. So I went to St. Thomas More Prep School in Colchester, Connecticut, which I didn't really want to do because it was in nowhere land. It was the first time I was away from my family. And I played there for a year, and it really helped me. It got me a lot stronger. We played against a lot of colleges, Fairfield freshmen. We played against a lot of different colleges, and I got to be a better player. But before that, the deal was made that I was going to go to Providence College and I'm going to get a scholarship. I just had to get, my grades in check, and I did that. And then I went to Providence. But Dave Gavit didn't recruit me because what he did when he was the assistant coach of Providence for years, but when his alma mater, Doggy Julian, passed away, he went up to Dartmouth to coach for a year. And Joe Mulaney was still the head coach, and he was the guy who recruited me. Then Joe got offered the job with the Lakers, and he went to LA to coach West, Baylor, and Chamberlain. And Dave came back to Dartmouth. Came back to Providence from Dartmouth. And I used to play in the summer league, with older players. And he came by, and that's when he seen me in the park, and I had my lip cracked, and I had never met Dave Gavit. And when I went to, it was a timeout, my lip was bleeding, and somebody throws me a towel. It's Dave Gavit. He introduces me to himself, and he stayed for the whole game, and that's how we developed our relationship. And I ended up playing for Dave Gavit.
Wow. Yeah, he had a great. I think one of the things that he was ahead of his time with, Ernie, was the development of personal relationships with people to get to an end goal. And I think we saw that a lot with the Big East Conference, and how he worked with the coaches. And if you weren't getting along, if two coaches weren't getting along at the meetings, he put them in the golf cart together, so they were forced to be together. They used to have the banquets before the Big East tournament where guys were around. How did you um, formulate your relationship not only with Coach but with Marvin? I mean, he was a year behind you, right? When he came
Yeah.
in. So
Yep.
Coach brings you in to talk to you and tell us
Right.
what happened from that point and how that all three of you guys came together.
Yeah. So I start classes at Providence, and I used to go in his office after class and talk. He wanted to know how my day was, and he wanted to talk basketball, how we could get better, and all the guys would play pickup games, after class around 2:30, 3-on-3s till about 5 o'clock. Well, one day he says to me, Ernie, there's this kid at Central. He's about 6'6". He's growing. He loves to play the game like you play. I want you to go pick him up one day and bring him over here and let him play with the guys. I said, okay, coach, I'll pick him up. So I went and picked Marvin up, and he towered over everybody in the schoolyard. And I had a green Corvette with Ernie D on the license plate. And the first thing Marvin says is, boy, I love this car. I says, yeah. He said, I'm going to get me one too. I said, yeah. He says, how are the games? I said, cool. He says, all right, come on. So he came with me. We went over there. We played. We played 2-on-2s, and I played with him. And then we played 3-on-3. And he was just a great, great player, because for a big guy, he had great timing to rebound and block shots. And he was very unselfish. He was very sociable. Everybody liked him. And Gavit was watching upstairs. We had these big windows in Alumni Hall where we played our games. And he gave me the thumbs up. I drove him back. The next day, he called me in the office. He said, Ernie, stay close to this guy because he's the guy we need to get our break going. He can rebound. He can block shots, play defense. He's the guy. And I said, okay, he seems like a great guy. I will. And we became friends there until the day he died at 61 years old.
You broke about 8 NCAA rules, but we're going to be okay with the statute of limitations. So don't worry, Providence won't get suspended or anything.
No, I'm not worried. And the other thing is, nowadays they pay players, right? So, I wish
Right.
they were paying players when we were around. We would have cleaned up, because every day in practice, Marvin and I used to run. Gavit used to stop practice with us running around the gym, to loosen up. And Marvin used to run next to me, and he'd always say, ED, we're running for the BR. We're running for the BR. You know what the BR was? The bankroll.
Okay.
Marvin wanted the money. So we worked out every day to make that money. Nowadays, they just give the players the money before they even play.
Now, you played in the time, like you said, there wasn't much media or coverage. And I'm guessing if it was the local station, you had to have special antenna, the rabbit ears, and get the local TV to work, right? Now, when you guys started to get some fame and some recognition, because I remember watching you, and I remember the way you handled the ball. I remember the backcourt behind the back pass like it was yesterday. And talk about the development of those skills, because that's not natural. That was not done in the 70s.
What I did was I had a very simple philosophy. My philosophy was, if I played 8 hours a day and you played 2 hours a day, and I played for 7 days a week and you played 7 days a week, I played way more hours than I was going to get better. And I was a better player. So one thing I didn't lack is confidence. And every day I would get up around 6 o'clock and get my basketball and dribble it down to my elementary school, always imagining someone was in front of me, and I'd cross over, I'd spin, I'd put it through my legs, I'd put it behind my back, never just walking and dribbling. Always with an imagination, someone was trying to take it. I'd cross over left, cross over right. And what I did from all those years of practice, I used to play 8 hours a day because I loved it. It was fun. and I used to play by myself. And then when they came, we played pickup games. I developed the ball was an extension of my arm, what Dave Gavit used to say, and I could handle the ball with my left hand just as good as I could handle it with my strong hand. So I was able to not look at the ball. I was able to look at the floor. And when you put together a guy who used to get 19 rebounds a game, he
Yep.
would get it to me, and I'd never come back for the ball. I'd always be cutting on an angle. You know, if I was on the left side, cut across the middle. He'd get me the ball, and then our break would be in fast break gear before the other team even knew it. And that's how I developed those skills.
Where did
And plus, Coach Gavit never said to me, you know, you can't throw the ball behind your back, you can't dribble between your legs. He had no ego as a coach and allowed Marvin and I to just play instinctively. I tell people all the time, and they never believe this. In fact, I seen Jay Wright one time, the coach of Villanova, at a Marriott one time at a bar. And I told him, I said, Dave never called a play. He just put the ball in my hands. And before the season, he took me in the office and he said, Ernie D, I'm going to give you the ball. I'm going to let you go. I was reluctant to do that in the past, but I feel you're ready now. And I'm going to give you the keys to the car, and we're going to go as far as you'll take us. So he just allowed, when a player hears that, the confidence explodes. And so I could do whatever I wanted. And he never, ever said, you know, don't throw that kind of pass, because he knew I was a great passer. And that was part of my instinct and, you know, my creativity.
How old were you, and where did Dave Gavit see you? How did he find you?
He saw me when I was probably 17 or 17, playing in the North Providence Summer League, where they used to have guys who were seniors in college playing there. And I
Okay.
was like a junior in high school, and I was leading the league in scoring. I was the MVP of the league.
The way Dave Gavit's vision, though, I thought you were going to say he knew me in third grade because he was such a forward
No,
thinker, you know.
no, you're right. So, you know, and what he did was he knew how to handle every single player on that team. I'll give you an example. I'm a very sensitive person. So if somebody yells at me, I don't like it. And I get very defensive, and I'll say, you know, screw off. So he never would yell at me, you know, and we had guys who were, you know, had to be pushed, and then he would push them. But he would never yell at people. He would always sit like about 10 rows up in the stands where we had practice, and he'd take people in and out, and then he'd bring them up in the stands, and he would talk to them and say, look, you know, move the ball a little more, you know, get to the boards, play a little harder on defense. So, you
Wow.
know, if you've ever seen our practices, you laugh, because all we did was laugh and have fun. And when you get a team that's free like that and doesn't feel any heat and pressure, like you're going to get pulled. We only played 6 guys. It was a lot of fun. It was fun to be at practice. It was fun to play games, and he had no ego. He was a
I
great,
can't.
great coach.
I've never heard of a coach coaching from the stands in practice. I've never heard of that.
Yeah, me neither.
Is typically on the floor. It's whether or not they have a whistle or not, with 12 assistant coaches. But it does fit the description that we've gotten from everybody. And Chuck alluded to it too, was
Yeah.
the personal relationship. So he's in the middle of practice, pulling people aside. That's one-on-one time. That's really
Yeah, that's how he
you know,
operated.
unique.
That's how he operated. I'll give you a quick story. You know, we went out. We only lost 2 games that year. One to Santa Clara in a Utah Classic. They were big and strong, and I played like garbage, and I missed a lot of shots. And when we won the next game, I still was the MVP of the tournament because I scored so many points and stuff like that. But the next day, the flight home, he wanted me to sit next to him on a plane. And I said, all right. And when we're sitting next to each other, he said to me, look, tomorrow after class, I want you to come to my office. I want to talk to you about something. I said, okay. I go to his office, and he has one of those projectors, millimeter camera projector set up. and he tells me to come on. He turns it on. He walks out of the room. He's got the film of the game. He leaves it on for 10 minutes. And now, I could see. I knew I was taking bad shots and I was forcing things and stuff like that. He comes back in, turns the camera off, and he says, "I'll see you today at practice." And so he got his message across without yelling, without criticizing me, without, telling me I did this wrong. That's how he operated. He was ahead of his
That's rare.
time
It
as
is.
far as knowing how to treat people, but he treated people with respect, and that's why everybody loved him.
When he started and he had the idea of the Big East, because you guys remained friends right until he passed. Were you like, did he ever say, "Hey, Ernie, let me run a couple thoughts by you and what I'm thinking of doing"? Did he ever get into that with you about how
He told me one time he got like $500 or $650 from Providence College, and he put it together. And I don't know how he did it, and that's how the Big East was started. You know what I mean? He had to come up with $650, and he put it together. But he went around and got all these athletic directors who were on board. But I remember him telling me. But he also told me something that's in my book that I don't know if people would believe. But he told me when he died, he always wanted to be remembered as a coach first. And he was a great coach. To me, a coach not only gets the best out of his players, but a coach knows how to make adjustments in the game. In other words, if you're getting killed on the boards, right, in man-to-man defense, or you're getting killed inside, one guy is scoring like a maniac inside. Gavit would switch in zone defenses and 1-3-1s and traps and stuff like that. He always made adjustments. And that's where I think he was a brilliant coach. And I tell the coach of PC, Kim English, all the time. You ever see that time when Tyus Etney for UCLA went down the
Went
court in
coast to
like 3
coast.
seconds
Yeah.
and scored at the end of the game?
Yep.
Right. Gavin used to always tell me, if you go into a zone, the way to beat a zone is it takes time and it takes movement and it takes patience. You can't just beat a zone. For the life of me, I can't understand when teams get up 1 or 3 points and there's a little time on the clock, why they pick up man-to-man full court and they just keep backing up and giving ground because they're afraid to foul. And the guy ends up going down the whole way into the court in 3 or 4 seconds to score. We'd be in a 2-3 or a 3-2 zone, and they'd have to take a 40-footer. But I watch every team, and they still stay man-to-man. I can't understand that one.
So you mentioned him, Ernie. So let's go there for a second. Kim English, I think he did a fantastic job this year with the Friars. I mean, the way he gets along with his players and talks with them, and the stuff he demands from those guys. Are you close with the program? And are you, and I know I was at the Garden. I was at the Garden when they brought you out as the Friar legend, which I thought was awesome.
Cool.
They brought you out and honored you in that regard. So talk about what your relationship is with Kim and the current day program.
Yeah, I go to practice a lot. I probably go to like 20 practices a year.
Oh, wow.
And he sits and he talks with me. And, he always tells me stuff and I tell him stuff. He asks me about this and I'll give him feedback about that. I'll give you an example. One time they shot terribly from the foul line and he was up watching at a college, prep schools from all around the country were practice, having this tournament. And he says, I got to bring you in to teach these guys how to shoot free throws. And I said to him, it's pretty simple. The first thing is you don't leave it short because it's like a putt in golf. If you leave it short, it has no chance of going in. I said, the second thing is you got to use your legs. Havlicek used to tell me all the time when I play with the Celtics, you shoot with your legs. Your arms just guide it. And I said, the third thing is you got to follow through and stay with the shot. He got on his text and he said, I just texted to all my players and stuff like that. So he's constantly asking me things, and I watch the players play and practice and stuff like that. And you're right. I think he's a heck of a coach because they really like him and respect him. And Red Auerbach always used to tell me that's the most important thing, to get the respect of your players, because they'll play hard for you. And then they really play hard on defense.
Yeah,
So
they do.
I think he did a really good job with Hopkins out. And this year they should be a lot better.
I got to ask you, because you went to the Celtics. I'm gonna let's go to the NBA. You're a senior at Providence. The NBA is there. Did you have any thoughts that you're going first round? And then what was it like with the big Italian family to celebrate a dream come true?
Well, first of all, you want to be a top pick. So Celtics used to win. So if there are only 16 teams in the league, you don't want to go 16th. You want to go in the top 5 or stuff like that. And I didn't think I would last that long. You know what I mean, with the Celtics. So because I closed like a son of a gun when I played at Providence. I played at St. John's, and I had 41, and that tied Rick Barry's record at St. John's Alumni Hall. And then I played in the tournament, had 36 against Memphis State, and threw some of those crazy behind the back passes. And then I played against the Russians, and the Russians coach said if we had Ernie D, we'd never lose a game. And I had a pretty good dribbling exhibition in Madison Square Garden. So I knew I was going to get picked, not as far as the Celtics, that low. But it was weird because they had no green room in those days. I was out in LA practicing in the Forum for a 6-game series, the U.S. against Russia. And while I was doing a 3-on-2 drill, one of the reporters said, Ernie, did you hear you just got drafted in the first round, 3rd by Buffalo? I said, no, I didn't even hear it. Then I just kept playing. So it was a whole different world in those days. But
you didn't have your suit? You didn't have your suit picked
play
out?
in the Celtics.
You didn't have your suit picked
No,
out?
I didn't have my suit. I didn't have anything. No, I didn't have any suit.
I love it.
I was practicing. That's how the only thing I knew was practice. But I love the practice.
Buffalo was what? Was that their second year in the league?
Yep. Yeah, it was his second year. McAdoo was rookie of the year before. It might have been their third, but I don't know. Maybe their second. I'm not sure.
It was early,
but
though.
we took that team that was 21-60. We took them to 41-41. So we turned it around, and we took the Celtics 6 games in the playoffs. So we had, like you said, we had some firepower on that team.
That was a squad.
That was fun. I mean, that caught my attention. And then I went to dental school at Buffalo, and Randy Smith is a local legend in Buffalo to this day. They still talk about him. He was a Division III college player.
He was unbelievable.
He was a Long Island guy, Sonny. He grew up on Long Island.
He was a 3-time All-American.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, that was some squad. So
we used to have. Go ahead.
Go ahead, Ernie.
We have to run a 6-minute mile before our first day of training camp, and I used to do it every day, so I make sure I can do it. I go to track at stopwatches and time myself. So I get the lead all the way, three laps around, 4 laps is a mile, and then I'd still be leading. And Randy Smith would pass me like I was standing still, and he always used to tell me, "Come on, let's push." I didn't have anything left. I could do it in 5:50, 5:52 or something. He was just a natural athlete with like all muscle. He had muscle on top of muscle on top of muscle.
Yeah.
So, Ernie, you were the rookie of the year in 73, and then Marvin comes in next year, and he gets rookie of the year in 74, right? I mean, you were 74, and he was 75, all right? So
what was rookie of the year in the ABA?
Yeah, but he was rookie of the year, right? I mean, he started with St. Louis. So that had to be special for the two of you guys to share that, Again, talk about, everybody knows his story as far as when he got into the league and when the ABA, the spirit of St. Louis, he played at St. Louis, and they had a squad there too. They had a lot of great players that played on that team. And I believe Bob Costas was the play-by-play guy for that team that traveled around with them.
He was. Him and Marvin.
Yeah.
Him and Marvin were buddies. They were buddies. Yeah. It was funny. When Marvin played in the pros, he developed a jump shot, and they said in one series against the Nets, he played Julius Erving head-to-head and outplayed the doctor. So he really had his game at an all-time high, as far as offensively. When he was in college, he let me do most of the shooting, and Kevin Statham,
Yeah,
was
Kevin's
our
good too.
teammate. So, Marvin could score, but he didn't have that, he wasn't a great jump shooter, but I guess he developed that jump shot when he was in the ABA and became an all around player.
When did he start having his issues at school with you, or did that happen once he got into the limelight of the league?
That's when he went to St. Louis, because he was straight as an arrow when he was in Providence. He didn't drink, he didn't smoke pot. He just, after every practice, he'd be in the weight room working on his game, and he was he was totally dedicated to being a pro. And
Yeah.
I don't know how Gavit pulled that one off, because when we lost against Memphis in the Final Four, I know a lot of teams wanted to take him in the first round, but Gavit got him to come back to school, and he used to take him aside after every practice and work on his face in the basket moves, one-on-one moves, because when he played with me, he was basically a post-up center.
At what point, Ernie, did you decide to write Star with a Broken Heart, and how did you come up with that name? I heard something, but how did you come up with that name, and when did you decide that I have to get this story down for everybody to share?
Well, when they died, we had so many unique experiences on and off the court, the three of us, and we stayed close, right until they both died. Gavin used to take us out to lunches and other guys all the time, so we would always talk. We would always be in communication. I was the leader on the court. If Gavin wanted to get everybody together, he would call me and ask me to do that. When he got picked to go in the Hall of Fame, he told me to get the guys together and distribute the tickets. So I was pretty much the leader of the pack. And I just felt that a reporter once told me, there was this reporter in Rhode Island who died a couple of years ago. His name is Billy Reynolds. And he wrote some books on Patino and the Big East and all that stuff. And he used to tell me, you could not make up a character like Marvin Barnes. He was unique. I mean, he was funny, but he had an addiction problem, and he was crazy. I mean, nobody said he was playing with a full deck, but he was a good-hearted guy, and he never did anything wrong with me. I always got along with him, and Dave he loved Dave, because Dave, I used to tell Marvin all the time, you're his number one son. He loves you, because when Marvin was a sophomore, Gavit got Marvin a tryout with the Olympic team. He didn't give me a tryout, so I said, Marvin, you're his number one son. No, you're his number one son. So I felt that they were two unique people, Dave and Marvin. And some of the stories you would never believe until you read the book, of some of the things that we've experienced. And I knew Gavit really, really close. I mean,
Yeah.
I was very close to him, and so was Marvin. And so I felt that those stories would be really interesting to tell other people about what happened behind the scenes in big time basketball, with the racial times, the drug addiction, the the family we developed, the love we had for each other, and then the sorrow and the sadness, because when I lost those guys, I lost part of that was my family. Those guys were my basketball family, and things will never be the same. And when I wrote the book, I wrote it to be that way, where it would touch people and move people, and it eventually would be a movie.
What was your process when doing that, though, Ernie? I mean, you go from playing basketball at a very, very high level, of course, all-star, rookie of the year, all of that stuff. Now you're writing a book. What was your process? Did you get an assist from somebody on that, or did you talk to somebody, or you just started typing stuff out, writing it out? How did you, and how did you remember all of the stories that went into that?
I was very creative on the court, and one
Yeah.
thing God gave me is a creative mind, and and I can think of things. Sometimes it's not good because I don't sleep now. I'm older. I wish I could sleep. My mind's always going on something, and so I use that creativity and that imagination and put it in the book. And when you ask me, did anyone help me? At the end, when it was all finished, I had a friend of mine, this guy Peter Govis, who writes for a small newspaper in town, went to PC. He polished it up where he made it like shine like a diamond. The stories and the thoughts are all from me, and I didn't write it. I used an app on Apple to dictate into the computer, and then I would print it and then work from there. So I created it that way. And you asked me how I came up with the title. uh, I go to Buffalo a lot. I got a lot of friends in Buffalo. I do a lot of speaking there, and I do a lot of autograph shows with my teammates, Dantley and McAdoo, and people like that. And a lot of times when I'm driving by myself, I talk to myself, and you try to stay awake because it's 450 miles from my house. And so when I'm driving, one day I just started singing a star with a broken heart, a star with it just came to my mind. And I said to myself, geez, that's the name of the book. And I called
Yeah.
my daughter, who was an English major at PC, who graduated. And I said, what do you think of that for the title of my book? And she said, I think it's perfect. And then I have a friend of mine who founded TJ Maxx. He's about 84 years old. He's a dear friend. I called him and I said, Ben, what do you think of the title of the book? And he says, I think it's perfect. And that's how I came up with the title of the book.
Now,
Wow.
Buffalo.
Just using the creativity.
There you go. You got a favorite place for wings? You got a spot?
I was a vegetarian for like 20 years.
Were
And
you
then I got
really?
off it. Yeah. And then I started eating meat for the last year and a half. I'm trying not to eat too much meat because I'm
Uh,
like Elvis. Once I start, I don't stop.
Yep.
all right, I'll let that go. Talk about I do want to hear a little bit. There has to be some events when you go to the Final Four. First of all, was that the first time Providence College ever been the Final Four?
Yes.
Yeah.
It was, right?
Yep.
What
Yeah.
was that
73.
like? Right? What was that like? Because I remember for us, I remember we had a charter plane that the NCAA provided. It's different than any other experience. What's that like? Talk about that.
Yeah, it was special. You know what was special? We had to beat Maryland, who was like, I think, fourth in the country with Tom McMillan, Len Elmore, John Lucas. And we had to play them in Charlotte, North Carolina, which was like where they played those tournament games in the ACC. So we went down there and we played them a game. And we, I've seen basketball games all my life, and I've never seen this ever happen. But the referees was so intent on getting me out of the game. They called 5 offensive fouls on me in the game, and they fouled me out of the game. Guys were just running up to me, just falling down, and they were calling fouls. So they fouled me out of the game with 12 minutes to go, and we were like 7 points ahead. And I went to the bench, and all I did was pray, God, please don't let us lose this game, because this is to go to the Final Four. This is everything. And my guys and my teammates played great. They actually increased the lead, and we beat them about by 14. So when we get back to Providence, we're playing on an all-time high. We're excited. Confidence is at a high. They win without me, and that next week was like probably the most fun week I can ever remember playing basketball, because everything was about Providence College and the Final Four appearance, and they were having pictures in the front page of cleaning companies with my uniform being pressed. That's how big it was. And so finally, we go to St. Louis, and it was a tremendous thrill to get there. And we're playing Memphis State, and UCLA is playing Indiana. When we play against Memphis State, Dick McGuire told Gavit, who told us that the first 12 minutes was the greatest 12 minutes he's ever seen of basketball in his life. We were running it down their throats. Marvin was rebounding, getting to me. I was throwing behind the back passes to my teammates. We're getting easy shots, layups. We're up by 16 points. Marvin goes to get a rebound, and he steps on one of their forwards, Ronnie Robinson's foot, and his knee locked up. Excuse me. And when his knee locked up, he couldn't run. So he came out of the game, and then he tried to get back in, but he couldn't run. So he was useless. They took him out. And then they dominated the boards. Keenan, they were playing ping pong on the offensive boards, and we couldn't rebound and run and get our break going. So we ended up losing the game by, I think, 10 or 11 points. But we would have killed that team.
Unbelievable. So give us a couple of stories about Marvin and a couple about Dave before we wrap up today that maybe, some of your favorite ones that are not we don't want to ruin the book for everybody. We want everybody to go out and get the book. I guess, first of all, tell us where we can get the book. That's the first thing. Where can somebody, is it on Amazon?
There's only one place. Yeah.
Okay.
No, it's not on Amazon because Providence College is my partner. So the only place to get the book is if people Google the Providence College bookstore. That's where it's at. And if they wanted to get it signed, there's an app where I personally sign it and they mail them out the next day. So it's the Providence College bookstore is the only place that has the book. That's number one. You want me to tell you some stories about Marvin and me and Gavit?
Yeah.
I got a million of them. One of the great stories was, how you run a 3-on-2 fast break full court?
Sure.
You're running, two guys are on defense and you're running 3-on-2 and then you go back and forth. Well, I was usually in the middle because I was the point guard, right? But at this time, there was nobody in the right lane. So I went in the right lane and we ran down. And I used to like to shoot hook shots. So the ball came to me and I took a hook shot in the right lane and missed it, maybe about 10, 15 feet out. And Marvin would never let me get away with anything without him doing the same. You know what I mean? So he gets in the right lane and he comes down and he shoots a hook shot. It's the first time I ever seen Gavit go ballistic. He blows the whistle. He said, "That's it. DiGregorio, Barnes, get the hell out of here. Who do you guys think you are? Until you want to get serious, you come back and, you're out of here." So he throws us out of practice. And we go in this little tiny, dingy locker room and we're changing. And I said, "Marvin, you know what? Without us, this team is nothing." And then Marvin will jump on it. He said, You're right. Without us, they ain't shit." And so that was one of our funny stories where Dave, we finally, he couldn't play without any damn Marvin Barnes. So he let us back. I'll tell you another funny one. When I was in college, I used to go to the best restaurant in town. It was the Chalet. They would have wine. They would have filet mignons, prime ribs, Caesar salads, high class. And when I get done, I'd sign PCAA, Providence College Athletic Association, and let them pay the tab. Well, one day Kevin Stakem came to Providence, and the first day he came just with a duffel bag. And I says, "Come on." Gavit introduced me to him. "You want to go play some one-on-one?" So we play one-on-one for a couple of hours. I said, "You want to go out to dinner later?" He says, "Yeah, I'd love to, but I'm a little short on money." I said, "Don't worry, it's on me." So I take Kevin to the Chalet, and we're drinking, we're smoking cigars, we're eating, and the bill comes. It's like $1.50, and I sign it, Ernie D. PCAA. And Kevin says to me, "Can you do that?" I said, "I just did it." Right? The next day, we go to practice, and the athletic director is standing at the door with a stack of bills about this high. And he calls us in there, in the room, and Gavit's there smoking his cigarette. And he says, "Who the hell do you guys think you are? Look at these bills." Now, Kevin Stakem's scared because he just transferred from Holy Cross. He thinks he's going to get thrown out. So he said, "Mr. Cuddy, it'll never happen again. I'm sorry. And so he turns to me, and I says, "Mr. Cuddy, the guy's so skinny, you got to fatten him up." And Gavit says to me, "Shut up. He's not talking to you." So that was another one of our great stories. And then I'll leave you with the last one. When Marvin used to play in the ghetto in the hood, they used to always tell him that I wasn't that good. So one day he said to me, Ernie D, I'm taking a lot of heat for you. You know what I mean? I said, News, take me over there. Let's go over there and I'll kick your friend's ass. So they said, oh, okay. He sets it up. I pick him up at his dorm and we go in and play. And now the whole place is packed with people. And we went on and we destroyed him and I killed him. And we walked out of the gym. His team, his friends said to him and came up to me, you were right. That white boy can play. They always used to say I was the great white hope. But after that, after I kicked their rear ends, they knew that I could play. But I could go on and on. I got a million stories.
Yeah, I mean, I can't wait, to read the book, and we'll have you back on down the road, because this has been awesome. I mean, for two guys that are basketball fans their whole lives to sit down and talk with you about hoops and your life and the book and the Gavit and Marvin Bonds, it's just been a treat for Sonny and I both. So thank you very, very much for joining us today. We really appreciate you sharing your time with us.
And thank you for having me. I really enjoyed
Absolutely.
it. I love telling the stories because in those days it was a lot of fun. And like I said, by writing that book, you relive the
Yeah.
memories of Dave and Marvin and myself. And I think they were really unique times. And I think people will really get an appreciation of the human side of the story, not just basketball. Dave as a person, Marvin as a person, and myself as a person. And thank you
How
for
how
having me.
close how close are you to getting the movie done? Do you think, Ernie?
Close. I'm talking to like 3 or 4 different movie companies that are really, really interested. And we just got to make sure we find the right fit. But I don't want to rush into it and just do it like a documentary.
Sure.
This is
Yeah.
going to start off with me standing at the grave, at Dave Gavit's grave, and it's going to go from there. And it's going to be a real moving story. People who read my book, said it was unbelievable, but they said their wives read it, and they said one guy said his wife was crying at the table. You actually, touched my wife's heart, and that's why I wrote it like this, and that's why it's really special, and I'm really excited about it.
Yeah, that's
Thanks,
wonderful.
Faizan. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Star with a Broken Heart.
Thank you.
You got to get to the Providence bookstore online if you want to get a copy of it. We recommend it very highly, and we're going to get on ours right after we get off with Ernie. We're going to get online and get ours as well. So please go to the bookstore website in Providence and grab your copy of Star with a Broken Heart. Ernie, thanks again so much for being with us and joining us today. We really appreciate you, man. Thank you.
I love it. You guys are great. Good luck with the rest of your stuff. Really
Thank
enjoy
you.
it.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
You've been
Thank
listening to the Big East Rewind with Chuck Everson and Sonny Sparrow. The Big East Rewind was produced and directed by Nick Chico Chorus and Daryl Gurney. Check us out on all things social media by putting in Big East Rewind in the search bar. And don't forget our website at www.bigeastrewind.com. Thanks again for joining us for another episode of the Big East Rewind, and have a great day.
Thanks, everybody.